Welcome to another Business Spotlight, where we share insights, reflections, and pearls of wisdom from local business owners. My name is Kerry James. I'm a business coach and facilitator. And on this morning's Business Spotlight, I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Guy Bartlett, founder of the Business Buyers Club and serial entrepreneur. Good morning to you, Guy, and welcome to Business Spotlight.
Morning, Kerry. Great to be here.
Good stuff. So let's get stuck straight in. Business Buyers Club, a reasonable clue in the title about what that's all about. But how long have you been in business, please, Guy? And what sort of areas do you specialize in?
So Business Buyers Club was founded 10 years ago, 2014, really after quite a long time in the world of acquisitions for myself. Essentially, it happened by accident. I had quite a few people, friends of mine, coming to me saying, how did you do what you did? I bought my first two companies in 2006. And I got into acquisitions really to solve a business problem. I was a business owner. I'd grown a company from scratch from the mid-90s to the early 2000s, based in the Northwest. We became a top 10 marketing agency, lots of high-profile blue-chip clients, specialist in direct marketing. We ran the JD Sports National Loyalty Program, the JD Gold Card, a whole ton of really significant programs for lots of well-known household names in the retail sector, really. But we experienced that thing of plateauing, Kerry, which I'm sure you'll have come across in your time working with business owners, where we grew fairly quickly and significantly, and then we kind of almost tapped out, really. And it was like, oh, okay, how do we go to the next level? And back in the 1980s and 90s, I was a massive fan of Sir Martin Sorrell, who built WPP, one of the most successful global advertising and marketing networks. But many people don't know that Martin Sorrell was really an FD. He was never a sort of creative or a suit, and was the brains behind the growth of Saatchi and Saatchi back in the day. So I kind of admired what he'd done from afar, but figured there must be a better way to do this. And I got to a point where I thought, if I bought our supply chain, because we spent quite a bit of money with printers and mailing houses and other associated businesses, then maybe we could cross-fertilize customers and obviously keep more of the profit in the group and grow the business. So that was the thinking behind it, really. I then had a series of misfortunes. I had a shareholder fallout, which some people have experienced. That wasn't a lot of fun. I fractured my spine, and I kind of came through that whole period going, okay, what's the universe telling me? And I just felt I'm going to give this business business buying thing a go and see where I get to. And spent 2005 working on a venture capital funded project, and also looking for companies to buy. And I started by choosing the facilities management sector, because I figured it's nice to have a business that has continuity of revenue, and you don't fire your contract cleaner as long as they turn up every day and things like that. So I was looking for lots of different types of businesses in a range of those business support services, really, and ended up buying two electrical contractors in 2006. Went from nothing to 2.7 million revenue, pulled out a significant amount of cash, and thought, this beats working for a living. I've kind of cracked the code. Of course, I hadn't. I went on and bought three more companies, made lots of mistakes, ended up selling some, closing some, and emerged out of that in 2012 with another growth business in FM, working for likes of Carillion and other big companies. Found myself, I kind of morphed into construction. My background's in, I was commissioned in the Corps of Royal Engineers, so I've always liked the kind of engineering, building type stuff anyway. So it kind of felt okay, but construction's a tough industry. And I had a coach I was working with at the time, who posed a really interesting question. He said, if money was no object, what would you do? And we all get caught up, I think, sometimes in business of, well, I'm doing what I do, I've just got to keep doing it, and without stepping back sometimes and asking a question of ourselves. And I couldn't get away from the fact that I like training, I like coaching. I've always been involved in sports coaching. I used to teach at Manchester Met University as a part-time lecturer. and they paid me, but I would have done it for free. You know, I've always enjoyed that kind of give back piece, really. And so I thought, okay, I knew some friends of mine had been successful in property education. And we talked about Simon Property Investors Network, for example. And I thought, okay, well, maybe there is a business here. And I looked at one other guy who was talking about how you buy and sell companies, and thought there's a space and a need. So I founded the Business Buyers Club, and I deliberately chose the name because if I was going to do it, I wanted to create a community. I wanted to have that sort of sense of a community of people like you and I who are interested in SMEs and growing companies and making the world a better place as well as a result. And in 10 years, we've now coached well over 250 entrepreneurs, and our clients have acquired something in the region of 145 million in revenue, using the processes that I have developed over those 20 years, really, of being in the game for myself. I still actively acquire businesses. So that's kind of the story of the evolution, but none of it was planned, Kerry. It just kind of evolved as we've gone along.
Okay, so just a bit more detail then, Guy. What might be the typical time span for purchasing a business? And your, if I understand rightly, then your business model is to hold a business buyer's hand and take them through that process, due diligence, head of terms, etc., and presumably take a cut of the deal. Is that right?
Not quite. So my passion is to help people on what I see as both sides of the fence, really. So I'm passionate about helping business owners who were like me, who maybe have reached a point in their business growth where they might have a 6-7 figure business, but really want to push on, but it gets hard. And acquisitions is bar none the fastest way to grow. But there are lots of bear traps on the other side of that. People get somewhat caught up in the whole notion of it's the deal, but it's not. It's about what comes afterwards, really. And I speak from the heart. I speak from personal painful experience of getting it wrong. I once bought a company in Blackpool because I could, and it was horrific. It was completely the wrong thing to have done. And it's not like property where you buy a property, it turns out to be a bit of a dud. You can just put it back in the auction and get rid. You can't do that with a business. So I'm quite passionate about trying to help people to understand why they want to do it, what they want to achieve from it, and whether even doing acquisitions is the right thing for them in that context, really. So at its heart, it's education. It's for buyers and sellers. We're trying to educate as many people as possible as to what is the right way to do things, where the bear traps are, but also obviously where the upsides are. When you do get it right, it's great. It's good for all parties. So at its core, it's education. So we provide very cost-effective training programs and products to help people, coaching support where they need it. And we just recently launched the UK's first network of M&A networking events to help people get together, get to know each other, and just constantly learning. That's really the goal.
Okay, very good. Okay, so let's look back a little bit. Clearly, it's been an interesting few years since COVID, but there's been lots of other environmental shifts with interest rates and Brexit and hybrid working and all the rest of it, and lots of news headlines about more businesses going to the wall than there ever have been, type of thing. How have all those dynamics affected your industry and your business, would you say, Guy?
Quite a bit to unpack there. So I would say there's a few things, really. When I started, there was one other guy who was talking about this, and he was very much an advocate of buy a business in distress for £1, de-risk it, turn it around, etc., and use insolvency procedures to do so. I personally have been experienced in that, both from getting it wrong, but also advising clients. And it's very hard to take a distressed business and make a success of it. There's layers of reasons why companies are in difficulty, really. So I'm not personally an advocate of that approach. Secondly, so much the same as you would buy a commercial property or a buy to let, really. So that felt for me the logical way of doing it. And the main finance tool that I used was invoice finance and asset finance, because again, there are all kinds of technical reasons why those products are, for me anyway, a good start point for the size of business that most people probably should aspire to acquire. But also, as I say, for technical reasons as to the way those finance products are available to business operators. So that market is fairly widespread. It's fairly competitive. Prices have been fairly consistent. And even with interest rates rising significantly in the last few years, it hasn't massively impacted on the cost of that form of debt. Whereas if you look at the market that I first used in 2017 when I bought a business using what's called a cash flow loan, the percentage has gone from 9 to 15%, and that's a big delta. So the cost of debt in larger transactions is a significant factor, in our opportunities. And one of the things we touched on, we were chatting before, Kerry, about SaaS pensions. Uniquely, in 2023, I pioneered 2 SaaS-funded share acquisitions, which, as far as I'm aware, is the first time that's been done. And there's still some work to do to develop that opportunity. But I think with the change in interest rates, the challenges in the economy as a whole, the state of the economy in the UK, Western world, there's a lot of challenges, headwinds against us as business owners. So we have to find innovative ways, I think, to keep doing what we do and to grow our businesses. And for me, untapped market is the SaaS pension market. There's considerable amount of cash sat in a lot of SaaS pensions. So we're working hard on processes that we can bring to bear to help those SaaS pension investors tap into, for me, an overlooked, unloved asset class, which is the shares in smaller companies, really. And when you couple with that with the demographic shift that we're experiencing, we've got 10 years now of a seismic change in the wealth profile in the UK. Just to get into the stats, if I may, we think there's about 36,000 companies in the UK owned by people in their late 50s and above, that are SMEs. So they are small and medium-sized enterprises, not micro, that have some form of management team. And when you then compare that with the statistics currently of something between 32 to 40% of good, profitable companies simply close, that's a massive loss to the UK economy. SMEs are the backbone of the UK economy, the wealth of the nation. So I'm very interested in the preservation of value, and the shift in ownership from the founder owner to the next good owner, as we call it. So teaching and educating people to be good buyers of companies and to look after them. You're a coach. Action Coach is all about embedding great skills and techniques to successfully manage and grow businesses. So there's a perfect synergy between the transition from an existing owner to the next owner to be successful in that transition. That's really the overarching mission of what we're about, really. I think there's a huge opportunity for business owners who want to expand and want to grow to look at this as a really viable way to expand what they do.
Okay, so in terms of the challenges then, Guy, you mentioned accessing that SaaS market as one of your challenges. What else might be kind of top of your list in terms of the challenges of the business, considering where you are today and where you're trying to get to?
Scale. I think we've always been a small operation. There are other operators out there that sell courses and sell the dream and the gold and ignore the realities of how challenging it can be if you get it wrong. They don't really properly help people with what I would call detail, properly structured deal structures, funding, management, and especially post-acquisition transition. Far too many acquisitions that go wrong afterwards, and that damages everyone involved. So I'm really passionate about trying to help people to do it right, from the buy side, from the sell side, from the advisor network as well. And a lot of advisors are very combative. I believe that the best deals are collaborative. And you get this all the time. You get, brokers and advisors, make the offer, make the offer. Well, an offer invites a counter offer and a haggle and a horse trade. And a lot of the time we say to sellers, what are you going to do with the money? When that money lands in your bank account, you get a 7-figure payout. What's your plan? What are you going to do? And all too often, they've just focused in their mind on their perception of a deal or something that a broker's told them that they're going to get, and not actually thought about how it's going to change their life. So for an example of that, a guy that we were talking to, I was quite keen to buy his company, but I was just as interested in him getting a good outcome. And in common with many business owners, he's like 60 hours a week in his business, and to turn that tap off, what are you going to do? And it got to the point where his wife said, well, I don't want you hanging around at home. So, you can't just get a hobby. So then the conversation was, well, how about you stick around in the business, be the chairman, leverage the experience and the contacts you've got, step back so you're not, in it all the time, but you're not switching that tap off overnight, for example. So there's so many of those sort of layers, if you like, that I think get overlooked. And that's also part of what we're quite passionate about.
So when you say scaling up is part of your key challenge, what sort of size and shape are you now then, Guy, as a team, as a business, and what sort of size are you hoping to move to?
Yeah, so we've, like I said, in 10 years, we've coached around about 250 people, which is a drop in the ocean, really. So I really want to expand the volume of people who we help. And we have a world-class toolkit that we call the Business Buying Blueprint, which is an online product, but it gives you everything you could possibly need as a toolkit to go and buy companies. So if you apply yourself, you don't need anything else. Everything is in there. It's full of videos, full of content, full of the tools that I use personally when I'm buying companies. Everything from planning tools to modeling to legal templates, everything. But we recognize that there's usually a level where people buy that and then go, oh, I'm struggling with this bit. And then we've created a coaching support tool, which is scalable to help people to get past a blocker, if you like, in that process. There's only 5 steps. In every transaction, there's 5 steps. So positioning who you are, understanding why you want to do it, what your goals are, obviously deal flow, negotiation, deal structuring, finance, negotiation through to heads of terms, and then the what I call the project management piece of completing a deal, and then lastly that transition phase. So those are the sort of 5 key steps really that is in the toolkit, and we've made that as cheap as possible, not so it's a cheap product, but to make it accessible. So 3,000 plus VAT. So that's the simple but comprehensive route in. And what we do is encourage people now to sort of get involved in that if they're serious about it, and then we can identify where their challenges might be. So some people, take for example one of my clients who is fantastic at building rapport with sellers. He's a brilliant marketeer and sales guy, but hates spreadsheets like with a passion. But you can't do this without mastering your numbers. You've got to know your numbers in the deal. So that's an example of where we can help someone to get past that particular blocker. And then other people are brilliant at the numbers, but crap at building rapport. So we'll help them with that, and so on. So
how many
5 things that people need to work on.
So sounds like you've got some people coaching business owners and buyers and sellers through that process. What sort of size and shape is the team now then, Guy?
Well, we're still at the moment a very small team. There's only 4 of us covering all the different things that we do. But that's why I said my ambition is to look at ways that we can scale this now, reach more people, help more people, both on the buy side, on the sell side. We launched Bartlett Advisory last year, which is a unique sort of corporate finance team where we help people to buy companies that already have a 7-figure company, but don't have the time to get involved in the process. But they might know a competitor or someone in their industry that wants to exit. So we help them to basically project manage that whole deal process. And we helped a few clients last year to do that, which is great fun. And then we also help people with the sell side. So because we've been buyers and sellers, we get it. So we're passionate about helping people who might be thinking, how do I get out of my business? And there are so many bear traps in that bit of the process. I mean, I don't know if you know, the stats are horrific. Less than 20% of companies that come to market sell, and that's really bad. So we help people to understand where they might have a problem, where their challenges are, and circle back to that whole thing of, well, how much is enough? If you know that £1 million is all you need to have an amazing retirement, you don't need to hold out for 2 million quid because a million does it. And you might find a much easier transaction at 1 million than, say, trying to hold out for 1.5, just because some broker somewhere told you it's worth 2 million quid. It's that sort of psychology that also, for me, plays here as well.
Very good. So what about aspirations for the business then? Where do you see the Business Buyers Club in, say, 5 years' time, Guy?
For me, I want it at the heart, at the heart of a community of well-trained, knowledgeable, passionate people who get the same thing that I see, which is this need for a transition to help these business owners. A lot of business owners have their companies for 20, 30 years or longer, and a proportion of their wealth is tied up in their company. And we really want to see them transition, to retrieve the wealth tied up in their balance sheet, to be able to retire and to do the next thing in their life, but successfully transition that business to the next good owner, so that the preservation of value continues, and that helps everybody, in the economy from the top down, really. So, if a company closes, a customer loses a supplier loses a customer, and people are put out of work, that's not a good thing. So in the next 5 years, I'd like to think that we become the preeminent organization to help both sides of that coin, really, to transition successfully.
Okay, got you. So now on to arguably my most important question, Guy, and that's about lessons you've learned as a business owner and as a business leader. You talked about a lot of mistakes you've made. If you were starting or buying a new business now, what might be the top piece of advice you might give yourself?
There's probably three things. First of all, people don't spend enough time understanding value in a business, and particularly a balance sheet. I was that business owner. I had an annual conversation with my accountant. How much money have we made? How much is my tax bill? And it's kind of the wrong lens, really. So try and encourage people to start to fall in love with the balance sheet and see where the real value in a company sits. I think secondly, understand your own motivation, have patience, and take a slightly longer term view. When I was first buying companies, as I say, same thing really. It was all about cash flow, putting money in the bank. And I think long-term wealth comes from laying better foundations rather than short-termism. And so I look at transactions both for myself and for my clients now from a longer-term perspective. Take less money out of the deal, reinvest that into the growth of the business. And you're a good example of that. Get a good coach. I think that's the third bit that morphs into that. So have someone to help you. Your team is really important. You can't do this by yourself. So a good coach, a good CFO, getting the right management team to support whatever it is that you're trying to do, whether you want to expand by acquisition, expand organically. Management is everything, and money follows management. So build an amazing team around you, and you'll achieve your goals more quickly and more enjoyably. Those are probably the key three things.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I never fail to be kind of surprised about how many business owners are frankly bamboozled by balance sheets. They just don't really understand the terminology or what they're about or why they exist. So some great lessons there. Well, Guy, thanks ever so much for sharing where you are and your journey and some of your lessons. Just one more question, if I may, before we close. If anybody is interested in a follow-up conversation with you or getting involved with your network, for example, what might be a sensible next step?
If people are interested in education, I love to communicate directly. Email me, Guy at thebusinessbuyersclub.co.uk, and I'll answer the email personally. have a look at my YouTube channel. I've got quite a lot of free videos on there which share my philosophy, tell you lots of useful things about what we do and how to do it, how to get into it, whether this is the right thing for you. Search me out on YouTube. Or better still, come to one of our networking meetings that I mentioned before. We've now launched networking events across the UK. So we've got London, Manchester. I'm up in Darlington for the Northeast. We're launching in Birmingham next month. So there'll be a city near you that you can get to, and it's a great environment. It's a no sell, no pitch fest zone. It's purely about building out this community that I'm passionate about. So Manchester is the last Wednesday of every month. London is the first Wednesday of every month. Darlington is the last Tuesday, and so on. So, but our website for that is m&anetworking.co.uk. So it's another great way for people to connect with us, really.
And is that a different website to the Business Buyers Club website, Guy?
Yeah,
okay. Well,
yeah,
I'll dig those out, and I will attach those to the videos when we post these on LinkedIn, etc. Guy. So that will enable people to get access to those dates, and also to the Central Business Buyers Club website as well. So, Guy, once again, thanks ever so much for sharing your thoughts, your story, and your time. And once again, all the very best with the Business Buyers Club and the M&A Network.
Thanks very much, Kerry. Great to spend time with you.
All the best. Bye for now.
Thank you.